This video is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com and GatheringMagic.com, your place to explore the game.
Hi everybody, my name is Stephen Frazier, and this is my Borborygmos deck. Okay, so the whole deck is kind of based around Borborygmos' ability. So he reads Trample. Of course, he's a 6/7, so sometimes that helps out quite a bit. Sometimes you can get through for commander damage. But really, we focus mostly on his second ability here. Or not his second ability, but his third ability. So his second ability is whenever Borborygmos Enraged deals combat damage to a player, reveal the top 3 cards of your library, put all land cards revealed this way into your hand, and the rest into your graveyard. That's alright, but what we really like is this one down here. Discard a land card, and Borborygmos deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So basically the whole point of the deck is we're going to get a bunch of lands and then toss them at our foes' faces. Alright, so of course, since we're getting a bunch of lands, we need a bunch of lands. So we start off with, we got 14 basic mountains. We've also got 15 mountains here. Alright, and the reason I've got a bunch of mountains in there is because another one of our kill conditions is Valakut the Molten Pinnacle. So basically, once you get 5 mountains into play, then you're going to deal 3 damage each turn. It just kind of gives me an alternate win condition if Borborygmos gets tucked or something like that. Of course, to double up on our Valakuts, we got Thespian Stage and Vesuva. And then we got some cycle lands. So this, I mean, just kind of gives me some extra draw ability when I need it. But then also, too, it works really well with Life from the Loam. That way I can throw them again and again. Alright, then of course Kessig Wolf Run to beef up Borborygmos or any of my other creatures. Raging Ravine, Gruul Turf, Rootbound Crag, Taiga, just some dual lands. Terrain Generator just helps me get more lands into play. Borborygmos cost 8, so that definitely helps speed him out. Temple of the False God does the same thing. And this just, have it in there just in case I want to get through just for commander damage or get in with any of my other big creatures. Just Rogue's Passage just makes it unblockable. Definitely always useful. Of course, everything needs to have a soul ring. Chromatic Lantern just to make my lands any color. Alright, then of course now we're getting into some of the creatures. So we're going to start off Groundskeeper. Putting a lot of land cards in the graveyard, that brings them back for me. Yavimaya Elder, get some cards, get some lands, all good. Brutalizer Exarch, this kind of does the same thing. I mean, I get to look for a creature card, or let's see, I can also disrupt my opponents. Let's see, Krosan Tusker. You might see a creature, I actually see a 3-cost cycling spell that gets me lands and another card in my hand. Honestly, I don't know if I've ever cast Krosan Tusker as a creature. Let's see. Frontier Guide gets me extra land cards into my hand that I can then use to throw with Borborygmos at people. Let's see. Oracle of Mul Daya just gets me an extra land. For one, it helps me speed Borborygmos out into play. And then I also get to look at the top card of my library, which is sometimes useful. Sakura-Tribe Elder, kind of the same thing, just getting more lands in my hand. As you can probably already see, that's kind of the name of the game with this deck. Terastodon, kind of, for one, it's a heavy hitter, but then it can also destroy some of their creatures and other non-creature permanents. Eternal Witness, every green deck should have Eternal Witness in it, bring stuff out of your graveyard. This is where it gets kind of fun, so I get a ton of lands into play. And Liege of the Tangle, he can give me kind of a double-edged sword sometimes. So, for one, I mean, I can turn all of my creatures into lands. Of course, that makes me really, really... If a board wiper comes onto the field, I'm kind of screwed. Because I can kill all my lands that way. But sometimes it's worth it to have, you know, 12 8/8s in play. Alright, Tilling Treefolk, just bring some lands from my graveyard into my hand. Spearbreaker Behemoth. Makes basically every creature in my deck indestructible as long as I keep some lands up, which I almost always have lands up, so. Let's see. Woodfall Primus. Destroy target non-creature permanent, kind of speaks for itself. It's also a 6/6, and it persists, so that's always cool. Let's see, we got Avenger of Zendikar. Always fun, because I get tons of landfall, so all those little 0/1 green plant tokens become huge. Acidic Slime, of course. Every green deck should have one, really. Steel Hellkite, kind of speaks for itself. I mean, he's just absolutely beastly. Plus it gives me some flying. Alright, Rampaging Baloths. Again, I get a ton of landfall. I think I get a little bit more cost for this one rather than Liege of the Tangle, just because I get a 4/4 every time I get one. Genesis. If a creature does make it into the graveyard, I can pull him right back out with Genesis. Knollspine Dragon. Let's see. This guy is absolutely absurd. I think off of Knollspine Dragon, I believe I've drawn 60 cards in one turn. Basically, when he comes into play, I discard my hand and draw cards equal to the damage dealt to my opponent this turn. So I mean, I've drawn my entire deck with him. He is absolutely amazing. Wurmcoil Engine. Just great bang for your buck. He's a 6-cost 6 creature, and he has Death Touch, Lifelink, and turns into little tiny creatures with Death Touch and Lifelink. Kodama's Reach. Again, getting lands into my hand. Sprouting Vines, getting lands into my hand with Storm. Explore. Play additional lands, helps me pump Borborygmos out a little bit quicker. I mean, pretty much all the upcoming cards are cards that bring more cards into my hand. Harrow, Explosive Vegetation, Seek the Horizon, Crop Rotation. This is where we're getting a little bit more specific, where I can actually look for Valakut, or if I already have that, I can look for Vesuva. Let's see, Tempt with Discovery. That one is pretty fun because I can search for Valakut, Vesuva, and if I want to, I can also search for Thespian Stage. Sylvan Scrying, same thing. Reap and Sow, destroy a land, and I get to look for a land. Alright, Life from the Loam. Absolutely marvelous shenanigans with Life from the Loam. I mean, dredge, and it just makes itself more powerful every time you dredge. Works really well with cycling cards, just because I can pull them back into my hand, cycle for one, put it back into the graveyard, and then I get a draw ability, bringing Life from the Loam back into my hand. So basically, if I have 3 lands, I can then throw 3 lands at my opponent every turn. Boundless Realms, basically it makes it to where, for one, I've had Borborygmos killed at least 6 times in a match before, making him cost just a ridiculous amount. So that definitely helps a lot. But also, 2, makes my draws just a little bit crisper, I guess. So that way I don't draw into a bunch of lands when I don't want them. Alright, we got Abundance. This card is a bunch of fun with Borborygmos, especially when you combine it with Snake Umbra. And then also up next we got Keen Sense. So basically Snake Umbra and Keen Sense, when Borborygmos deals damage to an opponent, I get to draw a card. Abundance says that I get to choose whether it's a land card or any other kind of card, so I always choose land card, and then I get to throw every single land in my entire deck into the faces of my opponents. It's pretty fun. Plus, let's see, Snake Umbra also has the added benefit that it's an Umbra, protecting Borborygmos a little bit. Barrel Down Sokenzan. Return any number of mountains to my owner's hand, which would be me, I guess. But that helps once I start running out of stuff to do with Valakut. If I need extra mountains that I need to play back into play, I get to deal some damage with them, and then Valakut gets a little bit more bang for my buck. I'm getting all tongue-tied. Seismic Assault. It's basically just a smaller version of Borborygmos. Whenever I discard a land, I get to do 2 damage instead of 3, but that's still helpful. Beast Within, destroy target permanent. Its controller puts a 3/3 green beast creature into the token into the battlefield. Get to destroy stuff. Always useful. Storm Cauldron. I tend to get a little bit more out of this than my opponents do, just because I get to play an additional land. Everybody else does, but I almost always play lands during my turn. So, Expedition Map, that's just another way to search for Valakut. Journeyer's Kite, kind of the same thing, just more lands into my hand. Seer's Sundial, I'm playing a lot of lands, obviously, so I'm going to be drawing more cards using that. Most of them are going to be lands. Horn of Greed, whenever a player plays a land, player draws a card. I play a lot of lands. Crucible of World, a lot of lands end up in my graveyard, so I'm going to bring them back. Illusionist Bracers, that one's a fun one. Put it on Borborygmos, and you get to copy his ability every time you play it. So, I mean, he's just hitting for 6 instead of 3 every time I discard a card. Let's see, we've got Lightning Greaves. I hate having to recast Borborygmos for 20 once he leaves the battlefield a couple of times, so I'd rather just put Lightning Greaves on it. That way he doesn't die every 5 seconds. Creeping Renaissance. Choose a permanent type. Return all cards of the chosen type from my graveyard to my hand. I've used that for multiple things. Most of the time it is lands, but every now and then I do actually kind of pull my creatures back in if I need some blockers or whatever. Let's see. Insurrection. I've come from losing a battle to winning just with Insurrection. Of course, if you can draw it and then cast it in the same turn, it should be a win, unless you don't play it at the right time. Wheel of Fortune. Just recycle my hand, get 7 new cards into play. Most of them are going to be lands, as you've already learned. And then, let's see. Last card here is Garruk Primal Hunter. Just gets me some extra blockers. Most of the time, I will actually just go ahead and do the -3 and draw cards equal to the greatest power among my creatures. I don't think I've ever actually done his -6 ability and put a green worm creature for each land I control. I really hope to one day be able to do that, because I can put a bunch of 6/6 green worms into the battlefield. Alright, thanks for watching CMDR decks, and please subscribe and favorite.